What's up, guys? It's Rob here. We are on our way to the gym once again. It's Friday, and so we're probably going to do chest today. That'll be nice. It'll be a fun chest day. That's always my favorite day, just because chest day, it means that we're doing bench, and bench is just it's a fun exercise for whatever reason. I don't know. It's the most weight that I can lift, and I feel like that just makes it a lot more fun. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do chest. Yesterday was kind of like a full body thing, and we also worked on like forearms, calves, that kind of stuff. But today it's gonna be a little bit more. I don't know if intense is the right word. It's gonna be less of a heart rate workout and more of just like a heavyweight, like kind of. I mean, I feel like it's kind of risky sometimes while I'm lifting. If I don't have a spot and I'm benching. Feels kind of risky. I have actually hurt myself one time while I was pushing the bar up. I hit one of the little racks where you're supposed to put the bar down, except I was going up. And so as I hit it, I was going up pretty fast, and the bar ended up shooting back down at me, slammed my chest, and almost knocked the wind out of me. So I ended up having like some chest pain for a little bit, like just like my ribs hurt for a couple days after that. It wasn't serious. If I'm not mistaken, someone had to come over and help me get the bar up at that point. Fortunately, some huge dude saw that I was struggling once that came down and slammed me, and he came over and helped me lift it back up. So that was, that's always great. It's always great when someone in the gym is watching out for you. I appreciate it. Whoever he was, he left right afterwards, but that was good. Hopefully that won't happen again. I always try to be careful because when you're lifting heavy weights, I mean, often I'll think how horrible it would be if while I was lifting the bar, like while I was unracking it, it's right above my head. Imagine if I just blacked out for a second. I mean, that much weight comes down on your skull. I imagine that just crushes your brain and you're done. So hopefully nothing like that will ever happen. But those are the weird paranoid thoughts that I have while I'm working out sometimes. Just what would happen if I passed out and the bar slams my skull? Those are the kinds of things that I worry about, and probably needlessly, but it is possible. I mean, people do get injured, and I mean, I don't think many people die at the gym, but I have heard of, bad cases, not at the gym necessarily, but sometimes someone will just pass out while they're driving. I have heard of that and get really hurt. I have passed out before. That used to happen to me when I was younger. I used to just have these spurts where I would pass out for no apparent reason. My mom said that it happened to her when she was a kid too. And that hasn't really happened to me for years and years at this point. But it would be at weird times. I remember one time I was in church with my parents, and we hadn't gotten seats. We were standing because, it must have been like an Easter service or something. And we were standing just kind of on the side, and, the church was packed. So it was really hot in there. And I remember just standing there and my vision going kind of dark, and I passed out, and I have a very vague memory of being carried out of the church, passed out. And it was weird because I remember while I was passed out being carried, and I remember that to me, it seemed like there were a bunch of flashes, kind of like people were taking pictures. Like all of a sudden everyone was taking pictures. It was surely just my imagination running wild. I don't think anyone at church had all of a sudden, I don't think a ton of people had pulled out their cameras and were photographing me getting carried out of church. But yeah, I passed out, got carried outside, just sat down for a bit, and I was fine after that. And it happened a couple of other times. Often when I was in class, it would happen. I remember there were a couple of times where I would just be in class and my vision would just kind of go dark, and I wouldn't actually alert anyone to this. My head would just kind of droop down and the teacher would just keep on giving their lecture, and a couple seconds later I would come back to. But it was weird. I don't know what it was. My mom said it happened to her too, and I'm glad that that's done now, because that could get me into trouble. And what's interesting, my grandmother, the same thing actually started happening to her in her old age. She's been known to pass out a couple of times. And so it must be something that runs in the family. It's the grandmother on my mom's side. And so it must be something that runs in the family. Maybe it's a heart thing, maybe it's a brain thing. nobody in the family has died of this, so it's not life-threatening. But I mean, you could get into a bad situation if, say, you were driving and all of a sudden you passed out. I mean, it's not super sudden, right? I tended to have some warning, just not a ton of warning, but maybe like 15 seconds of, now I know what to look for. So I've maybe got 15 seconds, if it were ever to happen again, of, oh man, something doesn't feel right. But I'm watchful of it, I'm wary of it, but fortunately it has not happened. And I think that health issue is, I'm going to say, resolved. I don't expect that will start happening to me again. It happened to me when I was young, and it was before I worked out. I was really, really thin as a kid. And I think that I was maybe just not eating enough. I wasn't working out my heart at all. I was kind of like, I was a kid, I would run around and do recess and stuff like that. But I was also pretty sedentary a lot of the day. I think that's a very modern thing. You're just sitting in class all day. And, it mostly happened in middle school and high school, actually. In elementary school, we did have recess, and I didn't pass out at all. But in middle school and high school, I feel like those were very sedentary years for me because, I mean, there was no recess, and, I lived kind of far away from my friends. And so a lot of the time, if we were to hang out, we would do so after school, but it wasn't like we were doing any kind of sport activity. And a lot of the time, we would actually be on our computers just gaming together. And so they were very sedentary years before I started exercising. And, looking back on it, it was probably not great for me. Those are the years that I was passing out. And those were kind of crucial years of development. I mean, I would venture to say that if I had been exercising and doing more physical activity, I probably could have put on, just some more bone mass on my body. If I was exercising more and eating more because I was hungrier from the exercise, probably could have put on some more bone mass, maybe been a little bit taller. There were probably some negative effects from being so sedentary, but it's just, I feel, a part of the culture now. If you live in a kind of suburban area where things aren't densely packed, you're driving a lot of the time to get wherever you're going, and you're going to be less active because instead of walking to the grocery store, you're going to be driving to the grocery store. And instead of walking to school, you're going to be driving to school. And I think that ends up, and while you're in school, I mean, nowadays, I guess maybe there were some gym classes that I took in middle school, but I don't think there really was too much PE. I mean, there were, maybe like 30 minutes a day we would do something in PE, but it's not like it was vigorous activity. I mean, sometimes we would play dodgeball, but, if PE is like 30, 45 minutes, 15 minutes of that's them explaining to you what you're going to do. You spend some time in the locker room changing into your gym clothes, and during PE, if you get knocked out in dodgeball, you get hit with the ball, you have to sit down for part of that. So it's not like it's an insane workout that you're doing for a very small portion of the day. And then in high school, there was no PE. I went to a small high school, no PE. There was no outdoor time really. I mean, we could eat lunch outdoors, but that was it. And you're outdoors eating lunch. You're not walking around or anything. So it was a very there's an ambulance behind me now. Let's see where it's going. Okay, not this way. Good. I'm not in the way. But it was a very sedentary time in my life. And I feel like in a lot of kids' lives, and I feel like that's only getting worse as kids now have access to more technology, and maybe they're on TikTok. I do my best to stay off of TikTok, but in fact, I don't even have to do my best. I don't go on TikTok. I have it on my phone. I intend on using it to advertise for business, but I don't actually go on to look at anything or use anything. So I fortunately just happen to not be on it ever. But kids nowadays are probably on that kind of stuff a ton. And I watch my fair share of YouTube videos, and I'll watch movies and stuff. And of course, I'll play some games every now and then. And so, yeah, I get my fair share of sedentary time too. But I also make a real point of working out at least every weekday. On the weekends, maybe not. I try to do something every day, though. And I feel like I spend a good amount of time doing physical activity. I mean, my workouts tend to last between 1 to 2 hours. And then I also recently I've been walking to the gym after I park. It's like a 10-15 minute walk. So I end up walking there for another like 20 to 40 minutes, depending on how fast I go. And I walk in the morning after I wake up. So I do a decent amount of physical activity. And a lot of it, when I'm at the gym, it's pretty intense. It's pretty vigorous. So I feel good about what I do, but I know a lot of kids are probably not doing the same thing. I know I wasn't when I was in middle school and high school. I was doing hardly anything, come to think of it. I mean, in high school, I kind of realized, that it probably wasn't the healthiest to do nothing. And I just didn't feel the best when I did nothing. So I would I would try to do some push-ups at the end of the day after getting back from school. I would do some push-ups and sit-ups just to get my blood pumping a little bit. And that was probably really good for me. But I know there's a lot of kids that are doing nothing. And it's just the way that our society has kind of organized itself, where kids sit in school all day, they're not on their feet, and then they get home and, at least at my high school, we had a lot of homework to do. It was almost always between 1 to 3 hours of homework. It was a tough high school. When I got to it, my freshman year, I think it was the best high school in the state, like the number one high school, at least the number one public school in the state. And after my time there, I think my senior year, we had dropped down to number 2 or 3 or something like that. My class did it, I guess, but it was a pretty intense high school, and we had hours of homework afterwards where, I would get home and we got out around 2:45. I would get home maybe 3:15, and I'd start doing homework and finish around 4, somewhere between 4 and 6 usually. So, that was, another couple hours of just sitting at my desk, at my computer, doing, oftentimes I feel like it would be math. Usually. The other subjects were pretty easy to just kind of blow through, but math, it just takes a while to do all of the calculations. They usually have 10 or 20 problems that you've got to do, and it's just, a lot of willpower to actually sit down and solve those problems sometimes. So, the point is that was just a lot more time when I was just sitting, not moving around. And then at that point, oftentimes, depending on the season, it would be dark. And if it wasn't dark, it was still kind of late. And I was kind of tired. I'd been to school the whole day and, gotten up pretty early for it, and had used a lot of mental energy, not physical energy, but mental energy. And that made me just want to, kind of sit around and relax. So there was not much exercise being done. My senior year, a buddy and I got a gym membership at the YMCA, and we started going to that after school. And that was really nice. That was when I had my own car, and I could do that. But when your parents are picking you up before you have your driver's license, they don't want to pick you up and drop you off at the gym, and then they have to come back to the gym or find something to do for an hour and then go home, and you've got another sibling who doesn't want to go to the gym for an hour at the end of school. So it's a tough thing to do. And, that could be potentially solved by playing sports. I just never liked playing sports. I was never good at it. And, there's something about structure that I really I don't find it too enticing. If there's a weekly meeting that I have to do for something, I tend to not like it. That's part of why I always wanted to become an entrepreneur, because I just knew that having these schedules and forced activities, even if they were fun, like sports, like just playing with some of your friends, playing basketball or soccer, even if they were fun things like that, just the fact that there was a structure in place that I had to adhere to, and I was told I had to be at a certain place at a certain time, I really didn't like. And so I've done my best during my life to avoid that kind of stuff, not having a work schedule, so that I can kind of work when I want to. And oftentimes, honestly, guys, depending on the season of life that I'm in, I'll be doing more work than I would if I had that set schedule of just the 9 to 5. Oftentimes I will do more work than that, but honestly, I don't mind it. I don't mind doing the work. I just don't like having a set schedule and limiting the freedom that I have to choose when I do the work. That's what gets to me. So that's what we've got for today. I don't even know what I talked about. It was just kind of my rant about being sedentary, and it's really, it's a problem. I mean, some people I've noticed really, as I've gone to different gyms, I've seen people of different ages, and there are a lot of young people that are using the gyms. Like a lot of middle schoolers and high schoolers I've seen working out. That's really good, but I don't think it's the majority. I think the majority of people are not being lazy necessarily, but they're just in this schedule that the school system has put in place for them where there isn't a lot of time to be active. And of course, they could play a sport. A lot of people do that, but that's about it that you can do. I mean, that's easy. You could always go outside yourself and do something like that, but it's tough. I've got my throat's starting to hurt, guys. I think I don't know what happened to it, but I'm gonna cut it off here. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.